Hi, everybody. I think I know most people. I'm David Jacobson. This is my wife, Petra. Great to see everybody. So what I was going to talk about is basically water rescues. And I'm going to try and be a little serious, but also be a little funny, even though it's a very serious topic. So in our situation, we were three of us on board, Gordon, myself, and a friend, Gordon and Frank. And we were motoring on powerboat from Corinthian to St. Francis. And as we were going across in open water in front of the between Alcatraz and the Golden Gate Bridge, we encountered a person floating in the water. And the person basically looked like they were conscious and had a life jacket on. So here's kind of our first protocol was, as you know, first you got to think about what is your protocol. And so we have a 12-step protocol that we practiced a few times over the years so that we could be just a little bit prepared and be able to think about it, because your adrenaline gets pumping pretty fast when you encounter people in the water. So first one is, if anybody has a thought on this, the first one is a spotter. And the second one is a rescue manager. So you got to divide the tasks among the crew. So you're going to have a captain, you're going to have a spotter, you're going to have a rescue manager. Each person has a job and they have to work as a team. So spotter's job is only one job: keep their eye on that person at all times, under all conditions, no matter what. You don't want to lose sight of that person in open water for a number of reasons. A, you could lose sight of them and they're gone. Two, you could actually run them over yourself. Two, you got a rescue manager. You have to hopefully have somebody on board who's got some pretty good chops on them. In my case, I was lucky. A guy, his name is Gordon. He was in the Coast Guard for 10 years, so he's a pretty well-trained guy. His job is basically to coordinate the rescue, and he will bark out the commands to everybody on board on what to do. So in this case, the first thing we did is the captain calls the Coast Guard and notifies the Coast Guard of the situation and what our location is, and our what we call preliminary assessment. Is there a sunk boat? Is it a kayaker? Is it a windsurfer? Any kind of details you can provide, descriptions of the person, as much information as you can convey very quickly, but you want to get the Coast Guard rolling because you don't know if you're going to need them or not. And they can take, my experience in the San Francisco Bay, they can take 10 minutes or they can take an hour if they're tied up on other rescues. So now you've done your situation assessment, your preliminary, and now you go to the kind of next step. You got to look around and make sure you got crew safety. Does everybody have a life jacket on? And is the life jacket securely on? A lot of people, very casual, they'll have a life jacket on, it's not tight. You might be sending somebody overboard from your boat if the person is unconscious. And so you've got to get that person in your boat ready to go overboard if necessary. So in our case, we pulled up upon the person, and fortunately it's pretty calm water. It was a woman. And we said, are you injured? We gave her instruction, the rescue manager gives instruction that we're gonna basically come around. We gave her throughout to see if she needed a life preserver. She didn't in this case. And so what we basically did is say, we're gonna pull the boat up, deploy the ladder, and the rescue manager gives very strict commands for her how to approach the boat, because you don't want to hit her with the props. And in our case, we have 4 propellers. And so it's a pretty challenging situation. And the tide was ripping along, and there were freighters coming from both directions, and there were sailboats coming from both directions. So you got a lot of traffic around you, and you got a captain who's got to keep an eye on all the traffic, and the rescue manager's got to keep an eye on the equipment, and the spotter's got to keep an eye on the person. So we pull up alongside her, we get her in the boat, get her over to the ladder, get her in the boat. She's suffering hypothermia. So you wrap her up, and now you have to do an assessment to see what kind of shape is she in. Does she need medical first aid, hypothermia, whatever? And she said, and then we find out what's going on. Why the hell is she floating around the middle of the bay? So she says, well, here's the funny thing. I just went on my first date. I was on whatever, eHarmony, and this asshole guy took me on a kayak trip, and who obviously didn't know what he was doing. And I fell overboard, and he kept kayaking off to the Angel Island. He doesn't even know I'm gone.
Oh,
And I said, "Oh my God, you're kidding." And she goes, "No, if I ever find him, he's done for." So I get out my binoculars and I'm looking around to see if I can see the guy. And lo and behold, here he is floating farther away, a couple hundred yards away. And I said to her, "Okay, you sit down, you get on the floor. I don't even want you up on the seats because you're shivering and you're not really in control of yourself. You just sit on the floor, keep the blanket around you. I got to go get this other guy." And she says, no, I don't want you to get up the ground. And I said, "What?" She goes, "No, he's a goner. Just let him, leave him. He's an a-hole." And so I said, so we actually get in a dispute with her because she's determined to abandon ship, so to speak, of this guy. So long story short, we get over to him, and his command to us is, "I do not want to be rescued. I can rescue myself. Just go get my kayak and bring my kayak to me."
Well, he was in the water too?
Yeah, he's in the water. And so we said, okay, we'll get the kayak. Fortunately, it was close by. And so we bring him his kayak, and we're trying to convince him to get in the boat, and he's not being compliant. And so we just hovered in the area and we called Coast Guard and said, "Hey, we got a combative situation." And so Coast Guard came out, and then we said, if you put both of these people on board, she's probably going to strangle him anyway. And so if he's alive when he gets on board, he's not going to live long. So Coast Guard, please come get this guy. And so they came and picked him up. So what's the kind of moral of the story is,
don't go on dates with assholes.
be very careful who you go on a date with on eHarmony. That's rule number one.
spoil it for the rest of us.
But any case, the thing is to practice in advance a little bit on what a water rescue is as a captain. Have a clear command structure. Who's the rescue manager? Who's the spotter? Communicate clearly with Coast Guard, and then most importantly, the rescue manager has to communicate clearly between the person in the water and the captain, so that you don't create your own accident when you're trying to rescue somebody. And if you're by yourself, then you've got a whole different set of challenges. And I'm going to cover that one really quickly. I've had to do that one in 12-foot seas by myself. And the way I found to do that is attach a rope to your life ring, and then circle the person twice like a water skier does. And you circle around, you bring the rope in a tighter and tighter loop so they can grab onto the rope and grab under the life ring and get under the life ring. And then they can basically pull themselves, assuming they're conscious, into the boat. We did that in 12-foot seas out between the gate or I did, between the gate and Point Bonita. And it was the same thing. It was a guy off a windsurfer. He'd lost his windsurfer, and he was on the Fairlawn Express out to the Fairlawn. So I've had that happen 3 times. I've done 3 rescues off the gate of windsurfer folks, and 1 by myself, 2 with a couple other people. So the key is have a plan and take a deep breath. So that's it for those 2. Thanks, Jim.
David, the only thing that we were trained, we did a lot of MOB for our offshore sailing on sailboats. And the only thing that would be different on a recommendation would be the spotter is also a pointer, and the pointer is pointing at the person all the time. So the helmsman or helmswoman can watch the pointer and know where the body or person is.
Yeah. And that is that. I would definitely agree with that. I use one slightly. I've done that. I also use if I have 3 people, I use the rescue manager and the spotter, and they're basically, yelling out commands to me, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. And you're right. The pointing of the finger is a great way to do that. So yeah, that's a good ad. Thanks.
Yeah. Nice job. Congrats.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. Yeah, the good
I only
news.
got one windsurfer underneath the gate with a freighter coming in on him. That was scary, but.
Yeah, yeah, we did one in the middle of the night in the fog under the Richmond Bridge. That is a whole nother little challenge. And so it happens. You find people floating around,
Yeah.
and you got to be prepared to deal with it.
The good news about the windsurfers is they're wearing wetsuits.
Yeah,
Typically, not all of them, but most of them do.
yeah, most of them are wearing wetsuits. Unfortunately, not the kayakers. So thanks.
Especially on a first date. That was a good one.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it was the last date too. So
All right. Well, thank you very much, David. That was great.